Okay, so now this session is being recorded and it will be up there for you in Blackboard. So our plan for tonight is basically to make sure that everybody understands the two assignments that are going to be due before our next chat. Our next chat is on the 27th of July, but we have one assignment due on the 19th, and we really discussed that assignment last time, but later I'll ask if you have any questions on it. And then I want to make sure that everybody understands the DRTA assignment, which will be due before our next chat. And of course, you know that you can always speak with me in between chats. You can email me, you can call me, you can text me. You have many different ways to get in touch with me in case you need to discuss something with me prior to our next chat. I'm trying to do the chats every other week, and I'm in between, as you know, putting a video. So there is no video for this week because we're doing this together. All right. So, and I won't go through everything on the Blackboard simply because much of this you should be doing on your own anyway. All right. So what I want to start with tonight is really talking a little bit about differentiating instruction and how we do that. Our chapters in our text for this week also talks about response to intervention, and we're going to try to show how that all ties together. So if you enter this chat a little late, you haven't missed anything yet, but we do have a good number of people, so we're going to proceed. Okay, so remember, if you have a question, you don't have to type it in. If you don't want to, you can put a question mark. I'll call on you. If you're happier to type it in and you don't want to talk, that's okay too. All right. So let me first go through some information with you on differentiated instruction, and then we'll go forward from there. And, you know, you may not agree with everything, and everybody has different ideas about differentiating instruction. Let me preface it by this. What a lot of administrators think is differentiating instruction is not. Merely putting kids into groups is not differentiating instruction. All right. And what most administrators don't realize is how difficult it is to do good differentiated instruction. It is a challenge, but it can be done if a teacher is given adequate planning time, adequate preparation time, adequate knowledge in how to do this. You can't tell somebody just differentiate. People don't know how to go about it. Even experienced teachers don't get it. So let's take a look at what it is and what it isn't, and see where we can go from there. So first off, I found this little cartoon, which I think just about says it all. Peanuts. Our teacher has an interesting theory. She says teaching is like bowling. All you can do is roll the ball down the middle and hope you touch most of the students. She must be a terrible bowler. Because sure, Charlie Brown's not getting it, so he's pretty sad, right? You know, how many teachers do just that? Teach to the middle. Roll that ball down the middle and hope, you know, they get some of the pins down, right? But we know we don't reach everybody when we are doing differentiated instruction. We don't reach everybody always, and we certainly don't reach everybody when we're doing whole group instruction, teaching to the whole class. All right. This is not the be all and end all. This is differentiated instruction is not going to solve all our problems, but it's something that works when it's done well. To some, you know, not for everybody. Remember, nothing is for everybody. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Much of what we do depends on the decisions we make as teachers. So the wrong decision at the wrong time is obviously disaster. Will any of us do this? Yeah, we all do it. Okay, the wrong decision at the right time is a mistake. The right decision at the wrong time usually equals rejection. So where do we want to be? We want to hopefully most of the time be making right decisions at the right time and achieving success for our students. Okay? None of us can do this 100% of the time. We're not robots, we're not perfect, okay? And neither are our students. And sometimes what works on one day, the right decision on one day, might not be the right decision on another day. Okay? What's the right decision for one teacher might not be the right decision for another teacher, right? We all have different learning styles. We all have different teaching styles. Not everybody is comfortable doing the same thing, and we need to recognize that and be okay with that. All right? So, why do we differentiate? Well, we know that kids are different, right? We definitely know that. We can look at our classrooms and we see not only kids from different cultures, kids with different languages, kids with different ability levels, kids with different learning styles, different learning problems. We know one size just does not fit all. So if differentiation is done well, it will give students access to the curriculum. It means that everybody won't be doing everything in the same way, but in the end, everybody will have been exposed to the curriculum. Will everybody know it in the same way? No. Can we expect that? Probably not. So, from the teacher's point of view, when you differentiate, a teacher is responding to learners' needs. Okay? That's easy to type out on the PowerPoint and a lot harder to make happen. But first, we have to recognize that students have varying background knowledges and preferences. And a lot of people don't want to take into account that a student might have a different, thank you, Rennie, we're happy you're here. I'm not going to welcome everybody because I don't want to waste any more time, but I can see the list of names of people who are here, so I'm happy you're all here. Anyway, so we know that students have different learning preferences. And too many teachers say, well, I don't care their preference. They're going to listen to me and they're going to learn it. I can't take into account 30 different preferences, but actually you're probably not going to have 30 different preferences, but we can take into account preferences. Instruction that appeals to students' differences. First, we have to know what those differences are. We have to really know our students, who they are, what level they're at, and of course, we have to have the materials and the room set up to be able to make this happen. Because nobody says that you're going to make 30 different lesson plans for 30 different students, or even for 18 different students, okay? You'd never go to sleep at night. It wouldn't work. But if we look at the characteristics of what a good differentiated classroom is, it's that the classroom is student-centered. And we are shifting the emphasis from the teacher and instruction to student and learning. So it's no longer all about me, the teacher. Yes, you know your stuff. We want the student to know it, okay? So you have to be comfortable with redefining your role as the teacher. Are you okay with not being the sage on the stage? Can you be that guide on the side for your students? It's a tough transition for a lot of people. A lot of teachers would rather stand up there and tell you or tell their students everything they know or everything they think the students should know. They might put it on the board and tell the students to take notes. They might read it to the students. They might lecture the students. Is the student going to learn it? Okay. Now, if you and I were together in a classroom and I was teaching this live, I wouldn't be doing this way. I'd be having you have a much more active role. But it's a little difficult to do this online, if not very difficult or impossible. So, I hate to say, don't do as I'm doing, Um, but sometimes I have to say that. I have to say, well, this is how I have to present this material. But when I'm teaching live in a classroom, this is not what I would be doing if I wanted a differentiated classroom. However, I also know my audience. You're all, at an advanced level. You're teaching, have some familiarity with this information, so it's very, very different. Okay. So, are you okay with giving your students choice? Or does that make you uncomfortable? Because choice is an incredible motivator. But not only do you have to be aware of your kids' readiness, interests, and learning, guess what? They need to be aware. Your students need to be aware. Are they ready to do this on their own? What are they interested in? How do they learn best? Do they know how they learn best? This is all very important. So you can provide choices. Notice I said you. Students don't tell you what they want to do. You're still in charge. You're the one who has to craft the challenging opportunities. There is no easy way out. So you have to come up with what you want them to do, and you provide those choices. Now, sometimes a student may choose the wrong thing. They're not always good at choosing the best choice. So you have to be that guide on the side who nudges them in the right direction. Now, is choice the only way to differentiate? No, there are other ways. I love the idea of choice. I love the idea of kids not all writing the same essay, of not all writing the same book report. Okay? We can have choices across the curriculum. Maybe it's a choice of writing topics, because don't we write better when we write about something that we like? Maybe we provide content writing prompts that are different for different kids. Maybe we let them self-select reading, of course, from a thing that we've already previewed. Maybe we make contracts with our kids. Okay? Maybe not everybody gets assessed in the same way. Because remember, this is not going to be summative assessment. We're doing formative assessment. We want to know at the end of every day, before our kids leave us, that they learned what we were teaching, that they don't go home with that big question mark in their head. Maybe it's how we arrange our groups. Okay? What we do want from our students is we want them to be enthusiastic about learning. And that's what we need to get to. Okay, so here's what we can differentiate. We can differentiate, oh good, okay, Melanie, wait, let me get to you. Great, go. Hi, Melanie, can you
Thank
speak?
you. I just wanted to comment. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, a little
Hello?
louder if you
Okay,
can.
excellent.
I'm gonna try to
Okay,
make it
yes.
louder.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you. I just wanted to comment that when we differentiate, one of the biggest, especially when we're giving different products
Mhm.
or we're looking for different outcomes depending on the needs of the students, one of the biggest things I have found that I didn't really see too much of in the literature, maybe I missed it as I was going through, is the concept of equal versus fair and
Mm.
discussing that with your class prior and even with parents at open house, because that's something that in the past few years, differentiation has been a huge push, and we've all had to kind of figure out how it works for us. And again, like you said, it's not always small group reading. So it's been a learning process for me in the classroom the past few years. But one of the biggest things, and I just wanted to comment on this because it has come up so many times. Well, it's not
Fair.
fair that so and so gets to do this versus that. And it depends what kind of a group that you have. I mean, if you have a very heterogeneous group,
Yep.
the past 2 years I've had a very homogeneous group. I've had the high students, but then in past years, you have a mixed group, and I cannot provide a student, and usually it's the students with the IEP that you really have to make the changes. But
Yes.
even then, there's so many things. So I think one thing that kind of I felt was missing from the literature that I really wanted to emphasize was this. not all the students are equal, because not like the saying goes, all students can learn, but not in the same way and not on the same day. And sharing that with them, and then they develop a sense of social acceptance almost.
Yes.
So I just wanted to share that thought because that's something that I've struggled with, and I've learned how to say it, because you have to be really careful how you explain
Sure.
it to parents, because they
Absolutely.
can get
Yeah.
really
Well, your
upset. And
child's not as smart. They don't have to do as much. Your child is smarter, so we're going to give them more. We can't do that, obviously.
right, right. And I just wanted to bring that up because when
Such
we
a good
discuss differentiation, as a mom myself,
point.
I see it from the parent perspective, and as a teacher, I've dealt with the parents and
Yeah.
how they've addressed things, and I always kind of take a step back. I've spoke with a very great occupational therapist who told me you have to explain the difference between what's equal and what's fair for your child, and you have to know that.
That's such a good point. And I think even more important is for the parent than even I'm not sure how I don't know. I guess kids would certainly say that too.
They
That's
do.
fair.
Oh, they do. They know, especially when they reach third grade, they
Yes.
become so aware of what's going on, and they really do get, like, I think third grade is that year where they start to see things,
Hmm.
and they're so conscious of what's going on, and they do notice differences.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because it's certainly true what you're saying, and I recognize that as well. And now I'm thinking I really haven't read a lot about that or really anything for that matter. So I've made a note to myself. I'm going to see what I see if there's anything in the literature. If you find something, let me know. But boy,
Yes, definitely.
what a good article that would make for a journal because I think that's the next thing to be thinking about. How do you deal with that? I love it. And maybe we can even
Thank
send
you.
a little question to Carol Tomlinson, who
Yeah.
is the guru here, because I'm going to show you a site where there's some active conversation going on right now, and I think that's something we ought to post on that site. I'm excited you brought that up. So
Thank you.
we're going to look at that. So thanks. That's great. I'm
It's
going to.
definitely something I deal with on a daily basis with my
I
own
wouldn't.
children, so
I imagine it is absolutely okay.
thank you.
All right, great contribution. So anyway, we can differentiate content, process, and product. And we're going to take into consideration what Melanie is saying because she's so right. But we also have to look at, is the student ready? Is the student have any interest? And that's another thing, just we know there are certain things students have to learn whether they're interested or not. That's not what we're saying. But some students will be much more interested if we give them an option of learning this in a different way or showing that they know this in a different way. And obviously, we have to know who it is that we're dealing with. And yeah, if you're having a homogenous group, well, that makes life a lot easier, but many of us don't. And many of us will have students with IEPs in our classroom, students with learning disabilities, students who are ESOL students. We don't always have that pleasure of just, hey, this is going to be easy to teach this to the group. So we have to be careful. So you know that a traditional classroom looks very different from a differentiated classroom, um, because you're considering student differences. Even the use of assessment can be done differently in a differentiated classroom because some students may take a test and others may not take a test, or maybe nobody takes a test and everybody's doing a different product. And when you see what this product looks like, you're going to know whether or not they've got it or not. And if we can address students' interests and learning styles, we want kids who love coming to school, who don't hate coming to school every day. And the way we can do this is by doing this kind of thing and doing it well. So our instructional format might differ. Our assignment options, as we said, will differ. And how we guide instruction may differ. So obviously, whatever we're doing, we still have to stick to the Common Core standards. We still have to meet our goals and objectives. But we're going to see how we can focus on this aspect of getting through the instruction, but perhaps incorporating differentiation. So here's another example of some differentiating strategies. We might have students compact information. We might have some other students do an independent study project. We might have interest centers or interest groups within our classroom. And one of the things, a lot of, as we started before, and Melanie knows this, that because she's mentioned it before, that a lot of administrators want to see your kids in groups when they walk into the room. Okay, but groups is not the same thing as differentiated instruction because you have reading groups. The other thing is when we do place kids into groups, kids know, just like the fair and unfair, kids know if they're in the low group, kids know if they're in the high group. We can't really hide that from them. They figure it out pretty fast. That's why it's really important that at some point in the day that we have flexible grouping, that those same kids are not always with the same kids for everything we do. Aside from which, there's been a lot of studies done that if you mix your groups and you have a high student, a low student, that sometimes that works a lot better than just having your low ones together and your middle ones together and your higher ones together. There's something to be said for heterogeneous grouping as opposed to just homogeneous grouping. Now, sometimes it works for certain things. Again, we need to be flexible. So strategies. We could provide choice boards. We could have tiered activities, and the tiered activities will tie into your response to intervention. Learning contracts, which I like a lot. So look at all of these options, okay? How do we get ready for differentiation? Now, it's what you have to really do, if you've never done it in your classroom, you just don't go to the hardest thing. You take one or two things and you start very slowly until you feel comfortable with that. And then you add on. You can't just jump in because you will drown in that pool as if you didn't know how to swim, okay? So obviously most of us do this because we have to. Our texts are varied by reading level. But do we have varied supplementary materials for the kids? Can we scaffold things in different ways? Can we take our tasks and can we place them in tiers? Okay, I'm gonna call on you, Chantel, in 2 minutes or less, but thanks. So look at all these. I don't have to read these to you. Different kinds of graphic organizers. Mentorships. Can your kids mentor each other? I love that. Can you negotiate with your kids as to what quality they want? Let me unmute Chantel. Chantel, can you share with us? Not yet, because I didn't unmute you. I thought I did. No, I did. Okay. Go ahead, Chantel.
Hello?
Chantel?
Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
hi, go
Can you
ahead.
all hear me? Good
Yes.
evening. I just recently took a professional development on DI a couple weeks ago, like right before school got out. And since we're talking about student choice, one of the activities that they showed us that we could do is like a tic tac toe board. You know,
Yes.
you always have to have like three in a row, but
Yeah.
it's pretty cool because you could have the students fill in that tic tac toe with different activities,
I
and
love it.
it's
Guess
like,
what you're going to see in 2 seconds?
oh, okay.
But yeah, you're
And
right, and I'm glad. So, did you think your training that you had in professional development was good?
it was awesome. And I live in Hillsborough County, and so by me being a new teacher, we have like a teacher inducted program. So it's certain classes that I have to take, and this was my last one. But out of all the 10 or 12 trainings that they sent me to, this by far was the best.
Oh, good.
Um,
I'm
and if
excited.
you guys ever get a chance, if you Google Karen Coyle, it's a book. It's called Successful Teaching and Differentiated
Uh-huh.
Instruction. It's like $20 online. I just looked, but I
Okay.
mean, it's amazing material. It has so many different activities, different graphic organizers you could use, and it was really beneficial for me. So,
Excellent. Okay, good. You know what? If you email me that information, I'll share it with everybody online, okay?
okay, no problem.
Perfect, but thank you.
Oh,
Great.
you're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. So again, look at the ways we can differentiate content. You know, you can have reading partners or reading buddies. You can do choral reading. We know that we can make flip books and books on tapes, and for some kids, cliff notes and organizers, and think pair share activities. There's lots of different ways to differentiate content, and I've taken all of this from Tomlinson's book. Here's a nice kind of contract, I think, for little kids, young kids, a reading contract. Choose an activity from each group, cut out your 3 choices, and glue them below. You're responsible for finishing these activities by a certain date, okay? And so the way that you get the kids, the way that you get this to be a little more equal and fair is by the choices that they have to choose something from, you know, the square group, something from the triangle group, something from the circle group, place them here, because this way they're not picking all the easy things, because you've tiered your activities, and this way, and they write at the bottom, this contract belongs to. And you can make this a little more grown up for your older kids, but this way you can't just say, you know, a smart kid, oh, good, I'm glad, Brenda. And I'm going to show you some other contracts as well. This way, you know, a child, and some of the more astute ones will do this. They'll pick every easy thing. Oh, I've got my 3 activities, and they'll pick the 3 easiest ones because they know they'll get them done in no time. This way, they've got to pick something that's not so hard, something that's medium, and something that's difficult. Okay? So, how can we differentiate product? By our expectations, by our timelines, by these agreements that we have, maybe by using a rubric. Okay? So, look at this is an incredible list, all the possible products. And again, as a teacher, you do what you feel comfortable with. And again, it's got to make sense because, you know, if it has nothing to do with making a terrarium, but maybe they're in science class and this makes sense. Maybe to put a magazine together makes sense in a, you know, it depends what it is that they're learning. But look at how many options there are, and obviously all these won't make sense all the time, but there's so many that can be tweaked and played with, and just to give you some ideas of the endless opportunities that exist. So here's another example which I love, and I purposely picked a science one. We're going to give these students a menu from the diner, and they have to learn about photosynthesis. So instead of selecting from the triangle, circle, and you could make this easier or harder again, everybody does an appetizer together. Okay, we're going to share an appetizer because we all have to have a basis of where we're going. We know that everybody, before we can ask anybody to do anything else, in this instance, is that everybody needs to be able to write the chemical equation for photosynthesis, okay, before we go any further. So to make sure the whole group gets this, before we move on, we're going to share an appetizer together, okay? Now, the entree, you have a little bit more choice. You only have to select one. So here's the entree the kids had. This was from an actual class that I observed. So draw a picture that shows what happens during photosynthesis. I like it. Write 2 paragraphs about what happens during photosynthesis. Write a rap song that explains what happens during photosynthesis. Okay? So, you know, how much fun would kids have with that? Would they still be learning the information? You bet they would. Okay? Side dishes. Every meal has to have some side dishes, right? So you have to select 2. You can define respiration and writing. You can compare photosynthesis to respiration using a Venn diagram. Now we are assuming that we've already taught and used Venn diagrams with the class. You can write a journal entry from the point of view of a green plant. How many kids do you think have ever done that before? Written from the point of view of the plant. So here we are in science class, and look what we're doing. We're incorporating reading, we're incorporating writing, we're doing it using differentiated instruction, and I bet when the kids are done with this, they're going to understand photosynthesis like they have never understood it before. I love the next one. With a partner, create and perform a skit that shows the differences between photosynthesis and respiration. Okay? And then, okay, dessert. Dessert might be optional for you but you know what? kids want to do this because look at what the dessert is. Create a test, but they don't have to take the test, you do, to assess the teacher's knowledge of photosynthesis. What do you think? Anybody? Do you like this idea? Would you ever attempt something like this? It's not that hard to do. Who's my science teacher? Christian? You like it, Melanie. Thank you. I like it. I think it's fun. I've seen it work. So yeah, okay. So, again, you don't have to jump in. It does absolutely, thank you. It appeals to multiple intelligences, which is exactly what we want to do. And everybody doesn't have to make you hungry. All right. Okay. So, but that's an idea. Okay. Here we go. Tic Tac Toe. This one is for a book report. And I love this. So we all know how to play tic tac toe, and you can do it this way. You can go across, you can go down. I guess you can go in the diagonal. So draw a picture of the main character, but you got to do more than that. Then you would have to make a poster that shows the order of events in the story and write 2 paragraphs about the setting. There's my diagonal. If I want to go across, draw a picture of the main character, perform a play that shows the conclusion of the story, write a song about one of the main events, or I can go down, right? And so everybody's got different options. And if you look at these the way it's done, different levels of difficulty. If a kid hates writing doing a Venn diagram, so they're going to avoid this corner. That's okay. Somebody else will do it and they'll get to see it later, okay? Now, if nobody picks one of these things, this might become later your class appetizer, something we're all going to do together, okay? And that's okay too. But was the tic-tac-toe board similar to this, kind of? Yes, okay, great. All right, so now take a look at this. Here, this was created we were thinking between a 4th and a 6th grade classroom. And this was the whole class, the assignment is really to write a persuasive essay. However, not everybody's ready to do this in the same way or to be the same length. How can you ask one of your kids who's really not ready to write a 5-paragraph essay to do that? But we do it all the time, okay? So here, we're going to decide, are our kids at the beginning level, at the intermediate level, at the advanced level, and maybe we decide that with the kids themselves, where they think, okay? So if they're at the beginning level, they have to determine the topic. Absolutely, I love that idea. Absolutely. I think that's a good idea. Exactly. Thanks, Chantel. I like it. So, write a 5-sentence paragraph that has a main idea, 3 supporting sentences, and including, because that's where we start, okay? And then you can see what happens for intermediate, advanced. Then the instruction. They get a model. The kids who need a model get a model, okay? These kids, the advanced kids, they don't need the model. They only need a graphic organizer to get them on their way, okay? And they've got some other things to do. All right. And then when we assess them, and sometimes we screw up here, because sometimes we don't ask a lot of all of our kids, but then we assess them all in the same way. Okay. So maybe this student at the beginning only has to still write that 5-sentence paragraph that shows the support and the main idea and will meet the criteria of our state writing rubric. All right. Here, the student does a little more, and here they do the most. Okay. Fair? They may not think so, okay? Better for them? Absolutely, okay? And again, I think that's why you're right, we have to think about this fair and equal. And we have to, it's a fine line, and we're gonna have to figure out, how do we tell kids, you're teaching writing next year and 1 to bar. You may, absolutely. This is differentiated instruction, you're absolutely, it's yours. Anything I put up, remember, I'm posting all my PowerPoints. And the only time that I've taken something from another source that I know of, I put like Tomlinson at the bottom of the slide. But if it's mine, it's yours. So enjoy. And you can tweak it to make it a little better. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear how your writing goes. I hope you let me know if you try to use this. Okay. All right, here's another example of a learning contract, and I like this too. My question or topic is, And you remember, they may be choosing from what you're giving. They're not just picking something out of the clear blue sky, okay? To find out about my question or topic, I'm going to read this. I'm going to look and listen to this. And this means we've got to have ready for them, a supply of different kinds of materials to read at different levels, maybe a couple of different videos or tapes, what we want them to write, okay? What we want them to draw. What are they going to need to get this done? And this is a good thing to ask kids to do, okay? What do you need to be able to do this? And then one of the beauties of all this is that kids get to share what they do, And this is not just taking their work and sticking it on the bulletin board. This is, and again, we need time to do this. And if our classes are too large, this doesn't work all that well, okay? But how will I share what I know, okay? Am I going to do a presentation for the class or for a group of kids? Am I going to make a comic book? Am I going to make my own video? Am I going to write a story? Am I going to just do a big poster? And when am I going to be done by? Okay, so that's the contract. Here's another contract that's a little more structured, okay? To demonstrate what I have learned about, all right, let's go back to maybe photosynthesis or the Civil War or a book that we've read or a story that we've read, okay? I have to choose from one of these things. I'm going to either write a report, do a demonstration, set up an experiment that would have to be appropriate, obviously, to what we're doing, develop a computer presentation, which might be a PowerPoint or a Prezi or something else, build a model, which works well for certain things, not for everything, design a mural, yeah, almost any, write a song, anything, make a movie, yes, create my own graphic organizer, or maybe you have somebody who says, oh, could I do this? And you think it's great. So you make that the other, okay? Now, this is important. The student needs to be able to write or verbalize to you, why will this be a good way to demonstrate my understanding of this concept, okay? And then again, what we want the student to let us know, what are they going to need help with, okay? So maybe, they want to make a movie, but they don't have the equipment to do it. Can you help them with that? Can you provide it? Maybe they want to design a mural, but they don't have the paper, they don't have the colors, they don't have what they're going to need. Maybe they want to make a movie, but they want to know, can they work with somebody else on this? They don't want to do it by themselves. Your choice, okay? Student needs to create an action plan. So, they're really learning a lot more than just about the content that we're teaching. They're learning to be organized. They're learning to think ahead. They're learning to work with other kids. This is important, This is important in the world, okay? And then, how's the teacher, what the criteria or the rubric, what's going to be used to assess my final product? And you've got to discuss that with the child. Are you going to test them? Are you going to assess them with a rubric? Are you going to have a checklist? Okay? They've got to tell us when they're going to be completed by. They're going to sign it, and we're going to sign it. Okay? So, another kind of contract. So, this is really important because we do need to assess. We can't just have all this wonderful stuff going on. And, sometimes an administrator walks into a classroom where differentiation is going on. Differentiated classrooms are noisy. Can you cope with that? Okay? But I say when kids are a little bit noisy, if it's noise that's going in the right direction, then I know they're learning, okay? If I don't hear anything, I think they're asleep if they're working in groups. Or even on their own on a special project. They should be getting excited about it. So, assessment. Assessment has to be ongoing. This means that you have to be on your toes. When your kids are in groups or when they're working on a project and you're doing differentiated instruction, you cannot be at your desk planning tomorrow's lesson. You cannot be sitting at your desk reading the newspaper. You can't do any of those things. You need to be either working with some of them walking around the room, asking questions, monitoring and adjusting and observing. Okay, let's read what Brenda has to say. Thank you for writing so much, Brenda. I love it. While students are working on their contract assignment, you can have individual. That's exactly correct. Exactly, and that's what you should be doing. And sometimes you have a group that needs teacher instruction. Okay, well, that's how you get that. That's how you get that accomplished. That's how you can really teach this to 3 students, something that they really need while everybody's doing something else. Now, of course, you got to train your kids well. You got to train them to stay on task. You got to train them to use the level voice that you want them to use. But these are all things that you can practice. You have to have a technique to bring them back on task, or everybody to the center. Let's go. But once you, and I don't mind it to sound like I'm training a puppy, but we need to train our kids so that they respond to our commands. Okay. Whether your signal is clapping your hands, or whether your signal is flicking the lights, okay, whatever that signal is, they need to know this means stop what you're doing and come here to me, okay? So it's ongoing. It's instruction dependent. What does this mean? Can we finally test the kids on what we're teaching them and what they're learning? We do enough testing on things we don't teach them in the classroom. So that's not our goal. We want to know they've learned just this little bit of stuff that we're doing. So it's got to be ongoing, it's got to be instruction dependent, it's got to be student dependent. Does everybody have to take the same test? No. And here's the biggest part. We should never do any kind of assessment if we're not going to do something with the results. Okay? Whether it's summative or formative, if we don't do something with the information that we get from that test, why are we doing it? The whole point of assessment is to monitor our students' progress and growth and learning, and then adjust our teaching. Are we ready to go on? Do they have it? Okay? If they don't, we don't do the same thing the same way all over again. We take a new tact and we try something different, okay? So, if you're going to try this, please, please, please start slowly. Try something little first. Don't jump in and try everything, because I'm telling you, it's hard. It's not easy. It gets easier as you do it. Of course, you want to organize your classroom. Hopefully, you have a classroom that you are allowed to move around. This is just one possibility. And again, this is what one of my students created and said that they wanted their room to look like for instruction. And notice, oh, God, excuse me. I clicked and I didn't mean to. I wanted to move this so I could see. Okay. I thought this was interesting because in this classroom that I visited, they had inboxes. Okay. And the inboxes, kids would come in and they would pick up, individual assignments or individual work, and they would work on it. And then they would have, I don't see it here, but I think there were also outboxes that they would then place things for that they wanted the teacher to look at. There was a teacher station. Actually, this room had 2 teacher stations, a computer station, the books, different groupings of kids, some kids working together as 4, some as 2, some singular, in different areas of the room. There was always a schedule so the kids would know what they were doing that day, okay? And I think that's important. So what else can you do to make this happen? Keep files on your students. Have portfolios that you keep on your students. This is really, really important, and it's wonderful when a parent comes in. Let me show you what your child has done. Okay? Use a clipboard. Why? Because when you walk around that room, you can be taking notes. You can be using a checklist. You can be assessing every kid. Yes, I like that as well. Student-led conferences, absolutely. And if you are comfortable with it, use technology. And I hope you're all getting more comfortable with technology. So you want to use the technology that works for you. If you have a smartboard in your room, but I hope somebody's taught you how to use it and how to use it well. If you have computers in your room, I hope you know what you're doing, okay? If you're lucky enough to have, and I think I know in Dade County almost every classroom now is wired with technology. How well it all works, I'm not quite sure, but use it if you're comfortable with it. Don't use it if you're not, because I will tell you this, and I love technology, and I use it when I teach live in person, obviously, and that's one of the reasons I'm willing to teach online, is because I absolutely love technology. However, I will tell you this, there's nothing worse than when technology doesn't work and you're counting on it. So if you're going to use technology as plan A, you better have a plan B. Exactly, a backup plan. Exactly. Because anytime I've relied strictly on technology, it's come back to bite me because either the internet didn't work that day or the projector needed a new light bulb. And, there was always something. So you always have to have a backup plan. Okay. So what does a typical day in a DI class look like? It's predictable. It's not rigid, but you do have a schedule, okay? And notice predictable, meaning that if you want to have your kids into a routine. And once they're comfortable with it and are ready to change, you can do that. It's not rigid though, we have to be flexible, okay? Sometimes we think we're going to do something someday and the kids walk in and we can just sense this ain't working today, okay? And we have to step back a minute and reassess and make some changes. We need blocks of time for units of study. And again, this is pretty much dictated, unfortunately, by your school. You need good procedures. They need to be defined. They need to be in place. Kids need to know what to do. That's half the battle of DI, is getting kids to know what to do and having students assume some of the responsibility. But students like responsibility. They want to be the one to hand out some of the stuff, okay? Giving students a voice and a choice. Right? Having a variety of materials, being flexible. Giving time for our students to reflect. So we stop a few minutes early and we say, okay, what did you like about the way that we did this today? Exit slips, perfect. Okay, hopefully you've all used them. And if we don't have time to do it with our kids in class, in order for them to leave, they have to write an exit slip. Tell me one thing you liked about today's learning. Tell me one thing you didn't like. Tell me one thing you learned, okay? Maybe we take some time for a community gathering. We tell the kids, okay, we're having town meeting, community, let's get together. How can we do this better next time? One of the issues we're having when you come in for DI class is that it takes too long to get the materials to everybody. How can we fix this? Get your kids to come up with some problem-solving ideas. They might come up with a better idea than we had in the first place, and they feel important. Okay, that's the other thing that differentiated instruction does. Of course it does, yeah. Perfect, Chantel, you're right. If they don't get it, and I think, an exit slip is great in every class, but think about it in a math class and a science class. No kid wants to raise their hand during class and say, I don't understand it. I don't know how to do, I didn't understand that division problem. No kid wants to do that because then the rest of the class says, what are you, stupid? Right? But if on your little exit slip, they can write, I really don't get it. Okay, sticky notes also works. I love it. Lots of opportunities. And if you're not, even if you're not, these things all work if you're not doing differentiated instruction as well, because not every day is going to be differentiated instructions. Because then I would be visiting you in the insane asylum. Okay, so not every day can you do this, but maybe you do this 1 or 2 days a week. Maybe I start with one class. Start with 10 minutes of one class. Break it in slowly, but exit slips everywhere, sticky notes everywhere, thumbs up, just tell kids, do you get it? Put your thumbs up. You don't get it? Maybe I've seen all kinds of different techniques that kids can do when they don't get something, okay? So they can let you know, okay? Because sometimes, I've seen students shake their head, yes, 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 smile at me and let me think that they get it, only to find out they didn't know what on earth I was talking about. okay? So kids are strange. All right. So here's always a problem. What about the kid who finishes early? Do we just let them go and play at the computer? I say nay, okay? I say have a little bit more structure for them to choose from again, okay? Um, if there's, because I don't like just letting kids randomly go on the computer without a goal, okay? But you might have some independent study things for them to do. There might be some appropriate games. You might have some puzzles for them to work on. Um, some people like kids do their homework. I love helping someone else who doesn't get it, okay? Kids, and when do you learn something best? When you teach it to someone else. So if they can do that, or they create the next math problem or puzzle that'll be used the next day for the appetizer, okay, can you imagine that? So there's lots of good things. We don't want kids sitting, student teachers, exactly. We don't want kids sitting and doing nothing or just putting their heads down on the desk, all right? So we need lots of things and lots of choices, but it's not so hard. All right, so what does research confirm for us? And you know this already. No two kids are alike. No two kids learn in the same identical way. What we think is an enriched environment for one student may not be enriched for another student. And ultimately, what we really want to do is we want to create kids who we are teaching to think for themselves, right? Because all through life, nobody's always going to be telling you what to do and how to do it. If you can figure out the way to solve a problem on your own and show that you know that, well, what could be better than that? Okay. And I think that again says it all. One size does not fit all. Okay. And I'm going to show you that somewhere else. So I'm going to post that PowerPoint for you a little later. Let's just, before I do that, I'm going to spend a few minutes on the assignments, but before I do that, let me just go to week 3, okay? So week 3, we know that there are, this is what you're going to be working on this week, describing the causes of individual differences in reading, okay? And I think you probably know those reasons, but I want you to read about that. Does anybody know what the Matthew effect is, by the way? Yes, okay. So tell me if you know something different than this. I think of it as this. You know what? I want to meet you, Melanie, because you can type faster than you can type as fast as I can speak, and that pretty much impresses me. And you don't make any little typos, so I'm very interesting. That's it. The rich get richer, and the poor get poorer. Okay, so that's exactly it. Okay, you couldn't leave elementary school without typing. Very funny. Okay, so. In reading, what that means is the good readers get better and the poor readers don't, okay? So yeah, it's in our text. So I want you to read about it, and I've given you some links as well that really do a good job in talking about that. And you can see I have the tab open here, but it's in your link here. It's the Matthew effect. And again, it says it here, the gap widens, slow starters and fast starters. So your slow starters get slower and your fast starters speed up ahead. So what do we have to do about that? And they call it bootstrapping, okay? And what that means is we've got to help those kids get to where we need them to be and pull them up by those bootstraps. How much of the Matthew effect is nature versus nurture? Yeah, I think it is, quite honestly. I think it is. I think a lot depends on background, how much they've learned, how much schooling, what the home is like. I think there's so much that is. And so what's our job as teacher? Our job as teacher is to overcome this nature versus nurture, okay? Since maybe it hasn't happened at home, what are we going to do in school? We know that kids who are read to at home do better, right? Kids who come to school with knowledge of the alphabet, with a little bit of spelling, with a little bit of, sight words, well, sure, they've got a leg up on everybody else. But what about the kids whose parents don't even speak English at home? or there are no reading materials at all. Never mind in English, in any language. And we have that too. So this is a little thing. You can actually read the whole article if you wish, but this is real important. And again, you know my site. And, you know, I'm so impressed, by the way, that some of you on your discussion board use some of my sites to put in your discussions, and you're doing a great, great job on that discussion board. So very impressed. Okay, so that's one. Whoops, I don't want to be there yet. Okay, so you're going to read about that. We've talked a lot about differentiation. You're going to read more about it. You're going to spend a little more time on response to intervention, RTI, which is also very, very important. And obviously, by the time you've listened to me, by the time you've read, you should be able to talk about how teachers can do this and how do we use RTI for our struggling readers. Now, I gave you the chapter PowerPoint, and it is here, and it's real simple. But again, please don't think this takes the place of reading the chapter, because it really doesn't, okay? These are very short, but here, wait, where did I thought I saw exactly on here what Melanie was talking about, nature and nurture, and it's got something on the Matthew effect, okay? And yeah, kids who struggle with reading are afforded less opportunities to read and improve, obviously, okay? Children who read well tend to read more. Surprise, surprise, right? No surprises here, but use this as your guide either before reading or after reading, or both. Works well for me, okay? So you've got that PowerPoint. RTI and response to intervention in a nutshell, and again, I go back to my reading rockets, and this really is, RTI is not an instructional method or approach, okay? It's a process. And what it does is it changes the shift of delivery and evaluation instruction that works best for students, okay? So here you're going to have a quick overview of RTI as it relates to reading itself, okay? So they talk about the screening, the teaching, the intervention, the probing. It is cheap. That's exactly what it is. We're talking tiered instruction, and here we go. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And you may see these in your IEPs when you have kids. And you've got some, personal information on this as well. So again, this is interesting stuff, I think. Okay, whoops, go back to week 3. So you also have, I gave you a playlist. If response to intervention is something that really grabs you, and even if it isn't, you should watch some of these. Remember, I don't expect you to watch all, but I wanted you to have them for the future, okay? Screening all students, implementing a screening program, how do you do universal screening, how do teachers use progress monitoring, how do we put RTI in implementation in, the different tiers, and so forth. So good stuff here. Matthew effect, I showed you, okay, and there's something else here on that. And then here's Carol Tomlinson. Now there's a lot of stuff on here, okay? In this particular one that I have it on, this is getting started on differentiated instruction, okay? It's something you should listen to some of these. I was actually going to play a longer one for you tonight, but rather than do that, because I've already been talking for an hour, I'm going to put it into this week's. I'm just going to show it to you in a minute, so but look at all this. This is a wealth of knowledge from one of the gurus in this field. And these are short. These are a minute. These are 2 minutes. To be honest, you could probably do all 40 in an hour if you wanted to, except for this one, which is you get 3 graduate credits for taking, and it just tells you about it, okay? But here's a PDF that you can open up on how to differentiate. A lot of the stuff that I've given you today in my PowerPoint is from this information, okay? I don't expect you to watch all of these, but I would do if I were you some of these beginning ones, especially if you're not familiar with it. And then how to fulfill this promise of differentiated instruction, okay? Did I open that? Let's see, I'm not even sure if I did. Okay, again, this is Carol Tomlinson's website, okay? So remember I told you she teaches at UVA, University of Virginia. We don't want you to learn with her. We want you to learn with us at Nova. But you can get some of her presentations. You can see what her books are. You can access her articles on differentiation. And if you ever get the chance to do a workshop with her, very, very special. And she does a lot at the reading conferences. Okay. All right. So what I was going to share with you was this. And I'm going to put it in. I started to do it and I stopped. All right. This is, I don't know if you're familiar with this source, but where do we usually go when we want a video? We go to YouTube. But you know that on YouTube is the good, the bad, the ugly. Why do I like this? This is called the Teaching Channel. It's free to you as a teacher. You can sign up. Thank you. It is great. I'm glad you guys are familiar with it. And they have absolutely everything, okay? So notice this one that I'm going to give you. This is only 12 minutes long, but it's New Teacher Survival Guide, Differentiating Instruction, okay? I love it, love it, love it. It's so well worth watching. You're going to see a teacher from Long Island implementing differentiated instruction in her science classroom. The difficulties in doing it, how she does it, here she is. Her name is Laura. She's on Long Island. She's at a school in New Hyde Park called Herrick's High School. I know well because I'm from Long Island originally. The population of the school, what the district is, a good school district. They spend a lot on their teachers and on their students, okay? But all these questions are answered for you. It's such a wonderful, wonderful thing, okay? So this is your guide. And once you do this, you can save your videos on here. You can talk with different teachers, and remember, free. So you sign up, you'll get the weekly newsletter, you'll see what's going on. You can see that people are commenting on these, and there's so many wonderful things right there, okay? So very, very cool. And I think on the other site, which we didn't get a chance to do, when we go back to the differentiated site on Reading Rockets, people were talking about, oh, I'm wrong. Here it is. That was the other one I was going to show you. On Edutopia, as we are speaking, people are typing things about differentiated instruction. And I was thinking, Melanie, this would be the perfect place for us to put in the discussion board here. Let's start a discussion. I'm going to ask Melanie if she would be willing to do this. Start a discussion. You'll have to log in, start a discussion. Edutopia is free too. Yes, thank you. I love you. And just let me know when you've done it so I can look at it. Let's start a discussion. We can all voice in on that, which would be kind of neat. Let's start a discussion on this issue of how, when you're doing differentiation, how do you deal with that fair versus equal? Wouldn't it be fun to get some of these people's point of views? So I think that would be so cool. So notice here I am, my other favorite website. Remember this one, Edutopia? And this is from my buddy there. Why can't I think of his name? Help me, help me, help me. George Lucas, right? Of Star Wars fame. Okay, so here he is, get inspired by George Lucas. Okay, so notice, look, they deal with the most important topics. So here I've clicked on differentiated instruction, but notice you can go to any of these, but this is what we're talking about right now. Okay, so it's all set up the same way. Look, so myth busting, 50 tools for differentiating instruction through social media. Ah, cool. 3 ways to plan for diverse learners, what you can do. And then a whole roundup of every resource online that anyone could possibly ask for, okay? So these are the discussions, and we can explore these discussions or we can start a new discussion, which is what we want to do, because I don't remember seeing anything on fair and equal, I'll tell you that. Then look at this. All the videos, more videos, in case I haven't given you enough, but these are really cool. These are current, they are new, they are short, they will make you jealous that you're not teaching in the schools where these people are, but that's okay because, You're going to be able to do it. You're going to be able to be an agent of change in your own school. Then you have all the resources, okay? Here, you click on that to get to that area. Then you can browse the different blogs that people have started, and you can see how many people are involved in these if there's something that's interesting to you, okay? So this is so cool. One of my very, very favorite websites. So please take advantage of that. Okay, so where are we? We're going to just now, let's talk about assignments. Okay, all right. And we're not differentiating assignments here, unfortunately. In this class, I have to go with what Nova gives me. So let me just ask, is everybody okay with assignment 1, which is due on the 19th? No later than midnight, 11:59, you have to turn it in. We talked about this a little bit last time, and I went on the links, and I showed you. And remember, these are the instructions from your syllabus. So you can look back at your syllabus again, okay? This is the rubric you're going to be scored on. It's worth 10 points, okay? You've got to review the nation's recent report card. I gave you the link. Find your state results. Then you're going to use the interactive map. You're going to compare your state results last year or the most recent year that's there in reading and writing with 3 of the states. You can pick the 3 of the states. You can do this. You can use demographics to infer the difference in the scores. So you might say, oh, they're in a rural area in Georgia. No wonder why their scores are lower. Or, oh my God, they're in a most affluent area of New York. No wonder why their scores are higher. I don't know. Does it work that way in Florida? If you say, oh, I'm going to look at the schools in Boca Raton and I'm going to see they do better than the schools in Homestead. I don't know. Okay, anything is possible. You can use graphs and charts to display this information, or I'm going to invite you to display it in any way that you think is easy for you, okay? All right. You're going to look at these areas, the knowledge and skills areas identified in grades 4 to 8 that measure reading development. Here they are here. And then you're going to make a hypothesis. And maybe you don't think it's a hypothesis, about how students' performance on phonemic awareness and phonics skills affect their vocabulary, their fluency, their comprehension scores. So this means you might do a lot of reading on this, but don't give me what you've read about. Yes, it does. 3 informs 4. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the idea. Okay. Most definitely. But here in 4, what I want is your thoughts. What do you think? Okay. And then in conclusion, which is why we spent some time in differentiated instruction today, how can differentiated instruction help readers of all levels? Okay. But how can it help them on skill-based standardized tests? Ooh, because I didn't say anything about teaching how to take that standardized test when we're doing differentiation. But guess what? There have already been studies that show that in classes where differentiated instruction takes place, kids happen to do better on skill-based standardized tests, whether we've taught them that to the test or not. And we don't really want to teach to tests. I know we do it. I know we're asked to do it. I know that if we don't do it, things don't look good to some people. However, if we teach them properly, we don't have to do that. It happens automatically, okay? So you're going to deal with that. Again, listen, this is not your doctoral dissertation. This is 10 points of your grade. Meet these criteria that are here, and you've got the 10 points, providing you have proofread your work, providing that if there's something you're taking from another source that you use an APA citation, okay? Make sure, though, where I'm asking for your hypothesis, that it's your hypothesis and not somebody else's, okay? All right, so that's assignment 1 due 7/19, 11:59 at night, okay? 7/19 is a Sunday, all right? You have questions during the week as you're working on this. I check my email every day. I check course messages every day, and my phone is with me. I hate to say 24/7. I wish it wasn't, okay? So, any questions right off the bat on this? Are we good, you think? I think this is easier than it looks when you start clicking. Yes, good. All right, so here, thank you. Here I want to take a quick look because we realize that This is due on the 26th, and our chat's not to the 27th, okay? So that's okay because I think you've all done this before. How many of you, I bet almost everybody, has created a directed reading thinking activity or lesson plan? Never? Okay. Sorry. Okay, Melanie, you're in for a treat. All right, good. So let's you're not sure. Well, let me go through this. Never this particular type. Interesting. All right. I want to invite you. Not too sure. Okay. Well, you know what? All right. I'm gonna put some extra stuff online for you, but let me talk through this plan with you through the assignment, and then I'm gonna do an extra little video that I will post by tomorrow, okay? So by tomorrow evening, give me some chance to think about it. That talks a little bit more about directed reading thinking activities, and I'll do a whole bunch of resources for you so that you feel comfortable doing this assignment. And again, don't start this. Remember, this is not due till the 26th. Don't start this till you get number one done. But if you once you get one done, if you turn it in early, I'll grade it early. By the way, okay. If you turn it in early and it's not good, I'll give it back to you. If you turn it in on time and it's not good, you don't get it back. Is that fair? Equal? I think so. Okay. All right. So directed reading thinking is DRTA. And all it really is, and you might be doing this and not calling it that, okay? It is a form of differentiation. What we do is we guide students through the steps of making predictions about a text. We ask them to use their prior knowledge, and then we ask them to read to either confirm or modify their predictions. So maybe I do this in a science class, okay? I'm going to go back to that example. And we're learning about photosynthesis. So the first thing I do is I ask them, tell me what you know about photosynthesis or write down some facts about photosynthesis, okay? Because we need to know something before we can make a prediction, all right? And then maybe we want to know, something a little bit more advanced, and we ask them to predict, well, if we give you these circumstances, what's going to happen? Or maybe, there's so many examples that you could probably come up with in science. Like when you're doing an experiment, we always ask students to create a hypothesis. What do you think is going to happen, right? And when you're doing your doctoral dissertation, which I'm sure you all will, right? I hope you're going to have to come up with a hypothesis. What do you think will happen? Okay. And you know what? You know what mine was? Mine was I believed that the use of speeded speech, that's why I speak so quickly, not really, but the use of speeded speech would help learning disabled youngsters comprehend material better. Okay? And I'm not the first one who came up with that hypothesis, but I did a study to show that yes, it worked. Why? Because the kids had less time to wander off. These kids, they were such struggling readers that if they heard it on, recorded quickly, they really paid much better attention and they could listen faster than they could read. So that was the premise. So we all make hypotheses. Sometimes they're not right, and that's okay too. That's how we learn also. Okay, so we're going to go through the steps of making a prediction. We need some prior knowledge, right? How can you make a prediction about photosynthesis if you don't have any clue about what photosynthesis is? Except maybe you could. Maybe you could say, hey, is there any word you know in photosynthesis? Do you know the word photo? What does synthesis mean? What's photo mean? Okay, and we could maybe brainstorm about that a little bit, right? Then we read to confirm or modify. What we're trying to do is a very strange concept. We're trying to get kids to think instead of being parrots, right? Instead of telling them what we want them to know. If they can discover what we want them to know, they're going to learn it. If we tell them what we want them to know, do you know how long you remember something somebody tells you? It's very sad, that retention rate. Very, very sad. You can look it up. It's not very long. You lose most of it after 24 to 48 hours, and you retain very little if you haven't done something with the information, right? So, and what we're doing is we're teaching our students, we're modeling for them how to be a proficient reader, okay? So we have to be good role models. So what do? We creating a lesson plan. We're going to use a DRTA model that consists of 3 portions, okay? And we need to be thinking in terms of higher order questioning, because that's thinking. If all we ask are questions that I can go back to the story and find the answer questions, that's rote learning, okay? It's important to be able to do that, but it's not critical thinking, okay? Now, assignment 3, we make an instructional unit. If you do a good lesson, okay, and you don't want to make an extra lesson, then decide what your instructional unit is going to be on, because you're going to be creating more than one lesson, and this can be part of that unit, providing you love what you're choosing. So choose something you love, choose something. Now, even smarter than that, are you teaching next year? Hopefully, yes. If you know what you're teaching, wouldn't it be nice to work on something that you could actually use next year and make it practical? So I say any subject area goes, any grade level goes, okay? You'll make the adjustments. If you can do something that you can use, oh God, then this will be meaningful to you, and that will be great. So part 1, you have to have an introduction, obviously, okay? And you have to do some pre-reading. So you're going to identify the grade level for this lesson. You're going to identify the appropriate text level may not be the same as the grade level. You might have 6th graders who read on a 3rd grade level, okay? So this is something we need to know, all right? If you don't know this, then you're going to be making it up. You're going to come up with pre-reading questions. You know, what are you going to ask your kids? How are you going to activate the schema here? You know, it's almost like, what are you going to use as an icebreaker to get them into this, okay? And then you're going to ask them to make predictions. You know, maybe you just bring something in and you show them something and you say, what do you think we're going to be talking about? What do you think we're going to be reading about? You know, right? So predictions. And some of them may be way off, and that's okay too. So that's your introduction and your pre-reading. That's going to be part 1 of your lesson plan. Part 2, what are you going to have students do during the reading? How are you going to scaffold or tier this assignment for them? Okay? So this means, how are you going to have them either prove or revise the predictions that they made? Because remember, we have to go back to that. Can they confirm the predictions, or can they revise them after doing some reading? Maybe they're going to find out, uh-oh, that's not right. You know, maybe we even just ask students how they think the story is going to end. And as they're reading, they might change their mind 3 times, right? Or which character in the story is going to be the evil one, okay? Before they've even started reading, or I don't know, you can come up with all kinds of things, all right? And then post-reading, how are we going to monitor and assess their comprehension? What are you going to do? We can't wait till they're all done. Then it's too late. So how are we going to monitor, assess as this lesson, as they're doing? Remember, it's not really, when it says lesson plan, this is obviously, you're not doing a lot of the teaching here. They're doing a lot of the work. You're guiding them. How are you going to assess and monitor things as they are going along? Okay. Then you need to develop a summative activity, and this says writing. If you want to do something else and have some choice, I'm going to let you do that. But if you just want to pick writing, you can do that as well. To conclude this lesson, that provides an opportunity for students to build on their comprehension. Okay, but the writing activity doesn't all have to be the same. It may be there's something in writing, but maybe some kids are going to write a comic book. Maybe some kids are going to write a song. Maybe some kids are going to write a paragraph because that's just fine with them. Okay, so this one is worth 20 points. You can notice that, and again, and trust me, I did not assign these points this way. I might not have done it quite in the same way, but Nova directs this. Your introduction is worth 1 point. Doesn't seem like much, does it? Your grade level is worth 1 point. If you leave out your grade level, you lose a point. Selecting the appropriate text, 1 point. Your pre-reading questions, 2 points during reading. What strategies are you use to scaffold? How are you going to do your higher order thinking questions? What are you going to ask them? Remember? So there are certain, you can go back to Bloom's taxonomy if you're not, or see if you Google that, if you're not familiar with it and you don't remember it, it tells you how to ask a higher order thinking question, what words to use, what verbs should be in your questions. Okay? All right. Not just what year did World War II end? What is that? That's a fact. Anybody can find that. It doesn't take rocket science, and you don't have to have one bit of understanding to be able to do that. So that's not a higher order thinking question. A higher order thinking question would be, would life today be different? Universal questioning, yeah, very good. Chantel, I'm gonna unmute you and ask you if you could give an example of universal questioning. Are you with me? Can you give an example?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. My son is a little cranky right now.
And that's not the example. Okay.
It would be more so not getting it directly from the text, but like an overall theme question. So it's something that they would really have to think about.
Exactly.
So
Right.
they really have to use their thinking.
Right. Okay. I'm muting you. I'm sorry, I had to mute your child. Okay. So anyway, how about this? How would you? Oh, I didn't. Oh, poor baby. Okay. So we'll give mommy back to you soon. All right. So how about this? All your kids have cell phones in class. You know that. How would your life be different if nobody ever invented the cell phone? Okay. It can't be a question outside of teaching, except for this lesson. It's got to be something. Obviously, your lesson has to be structured enough that we're leading them in the right direction. A universal question, why do humans cry? Very good, absolutely. And that might relate to some literature that one reads or anything else. It can be outside of the teaching. You got to be careful because it's got to be appropriate. You got to be careful. You don't want kids to come up with the wrong thing. Yes, they need to synthesize. They need to evaluate. Very good. Those are the key words for higher order thinking, right? Synthesizing and evaluating. That's what we ask people to do, okay, when we want higher order thinking. Thank you. Excellent. So that's your deal for this. And remember, I'm going to provide extra above and beyond for you. So anyway, I've kept you a very long time. It's like having you live. However, I think it's important, I know you took this to be on your own, but something tells me it's nice to have the human touch sometimes, okay? If I'm wrong, you'll let me know when you do your course evaluations at the end of the semester, because I can tell you I'm spending more time with you online than I spend usually. But the other reason that I'm doing this is because I really love the information in this course. I think it's so important, and I'm really passionate about it, in case you haven't noticed. So anyway, and I hope that you guys love teaching as much as I love teaching, because if you don't, find something else to do. That's my word to the wise. All right, any questions I can answer? I'm fun enough. Thank you. I like to hear that. Okay, and hopefully you're the same. Because you know what? You can, of course, I'm going to stay online with you, Melanie, absolutely. So you can be fun and upbeat, and you can still teach and be that way. Because if you're a stick in the mud, oh, that's okay, Chantel. I feel badly because obviously you're neglecting your child. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, yeah. But anyway, those of you who are ready to sign off, sign off. If you want to send me an email or you have something to say, do that. But thanks to you for all coming online. Thank you for giving me your time. I hope it's important and meaningful to you. I hope you're learning something this way. So thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you soon. And I'm going to end this recording now.